a feminist as yourself would change your name, and you never changed the last time as a sellout to patriarchy. And I say I used it as an opportunity to let women, especially women in the church, know I was sexually abused as a child by the person who had adopted me and gave me the name Donald. So I now reinvent myself. However, it simply is just an opportunity to let people know that one of the powerful means of transformation is the matter of being able to speak about abuse, sexual abuse, which is rampant in the church, and which was alluded to in the presentation. And as Evie said, the matter of sexuality is indeed one that we need to face head on. So to my question, Eve, you had mentioned needing to distinguish between something and cultural accretions. I missed it. You can just remind me what that was. Because I think that is so important, especially in the matter of unity in the church.
Between the essence and cultural accretion.
Between the essence of the faith. Yes, and cultural accretion. Because indeed, even as we are in the context of an ecumenical organization, it's so important to recognize that so many of the things that divide sometimes are cultural, even in the theological debates, and not about the essence. In terms of a question, the role of theological education, you said that she said it was very important in terms of transformation. Question, is there anything in Dr. Booth's work or in our life that would give us a clue to how to translate this theological education into the spaces of the people in the congregations? I preached last Sunday just gone at a church where Genesis chapter 2 was the passage, and I dipped into the matter of letting the people know that there are two stories in Genesis. And this is a congregation where there are about 50 people, and about 80% were maybe over 70 years old. And then the other percent was like under 10 years old. It was very challenging. And I moved this evening into the Lenten, I'm an Anglican, into the Lenten studies, where we seek to look at the Bible and the connection with everyday life. So in terms of Hyacinth's own life, are there any clues for us as persons who need to go out there now and connect with the people? Constantly I hear the accusation from people who know me closely, but Pat, where you get them something from? We don't hear it preached when I speak to them one-on-one. Like the Ruach, a feminine noun, could represent the feminine principle of God. Somebody nearly killed about that.
Okay, we can take one more question now before Dr. Brennan responds.
Okay, let me respond to these two, because they both, one wasn't a question.
Can I beg an indulgence?
Yes, ma'am.
The first part of my contribution.
You never respond to it.
I would like Dr. Vernon to address the first part of the comment I made about the identity of women. Who am I as a woman? I think there's still a lot of confusion and cloud about that in the whole business of gender relations. Every time issues of gender come up, it just leads to confrontation and dissension. And Dr. Booth was very concerned with this whole business of one's identity as a woman. Who am I as a Christian woman?
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. And I'm going to link what you said with what Pat said, because there's a really important clip of an address Dr. Booth did that, well, technology never did too help me getting it up. But in that clip to the Methodist Evangelism Institute or some such, quite recently, about 2 years ago, she really addressed largely lay people on these issues of feminism in the Bible. And that is where she used the terms feminism and womanism. And she said, did you know there was a feminist movement in the Old Testament? And she drew attention to Vashti and so on. So the question of how you relate all this grand teaching in the theological academy to what happens in the lives of the people of God, both in congregations and outside, is something we need to take seriously. It's not joke when I go to Christian education class for that is part of what happens is to help us. But the bridge between what you learn here and what happens in the community is something that we need to take seriously. And I speak to this coming as someone also who taught at another institution, the Michael. And we have a representative here, and anyway, I'll not embarrass the person. More than so. But when I taught at Michael, one of the things was students learned one thing about discipline and how to discipline within their classroom setting. And they were going out on their teaching practice. And the first one, I said to them, how much I want to go and lick people picnic? That is to beat them. And they said, oh no, miss, never, never. Because we've learned this and that and so on and how to discipline. It was a 2 weeks one. When I came back, I said, so how much I want to lick people picnic? Every hand went up. Because the whole thing, I was a safe place, Jennifer. So they knew I wasn't going to report them to the powers. Oh.
Not to tell you.
Oh.
To commit the acts.
Well, it was, but they were in primary schools. And the culture of the schools, it wouldn't have happened in the secondary schools, but the culture of the schools was such that everybody was beating the picnic them. Now, how do you transform culture? So we teach people one thing in theological college. When they hit the churches, because we are not working closely enough with the churches and with the ministers who are supervisors or rectors or whatever. So all the nice things, these young people are seen as troublemakers. And they become discouraged and they go back into their old ways and works. Yeah? So this is something, that bridge, that I'm very interested in and I'm discussing at other levels that we have to deal with. The role of women and the focus of women, look here. As Dr. Booth said in that very Ugonal lecture, I'm moving from that seminar too. Ugonal is from the ovaries.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Seminal from the seed. No.
Thank you.
All right. She pointed out that, as did what's her name, Sojourner Truth. Where did Jesus come from? Where did your Jesus come from? God and a woman. No man had any part in that. No, we're not putting down men. But we need to know the place of women are, at the heart of the incarnation, at the heart of the Trinity. And we need to be thinking about that. These are not things that are too hard for the people in the church. In the same way that world faith was not too hard, is not too hard for the little people there. Sorry, Hayase. These issues are not too hard for the ordinary people. So we have to continue to struggle and deal with them. The ecumenical thing, just to say quickly. Yes, we need to go with it. But I'm, as much as I am happy that at least 2 denominations that I know of have produced new hymnals, I am saddened that 2 denominations in the Caribbean have produced 2 hymnals.
Okay.
What happened to the theological project, man, and the unity? We have retreated into denominationalism. Denominationalism and sectarianism. Sectarianism is as big a sin as racism. You hear me? Yeah. Sectarianism is a sin. And we are going to destroy each other because of little foolishness. I remember William Wilberforce Watty saying here, pointing out, I paraphrase, that what have we to do? We go on in the Caribbean as though John Wesley just down the road. What have we to do with these divisions that we have inherited from Europe, that Europe is not interested in anymore? And we are perpetuating them as though they had anything to do with us. You think they're business with us as black people, friends? Our denominational heritage? What would Calvin have said about us? Even dear Wesley, and all the others. They really would have owned us as true inheritors of their faith. Let us think again. We belong together, not apart.
Just to say thank you so much for the lecture. It was more than a lecture. It was an experience. And as one who doesn't originate from the Caribbean context, but who recognizes that many of the issues that you discussed and that have been a part of this conversation don't end at the end of these islands. And it's really important for you to hear that. My name is Deborah Mullen. I'm Dean of Faculty and Executive Vice President at Columbia Theological Seminary. We're in partnership with UTCWI, with your president and the leadership in this institution, to have an extension, the MIN program here, Doctor of Ministry program here. And we're struggling with the same kinds of issues today that Dr. Booth so prophetically articulated in her time. And it is not enough to debate these issues because they're contentious and we get defensive. And the whole male-female thing especially. Did somebody say amen? Hey women, whatever. I mean, but we need to kind of keep it on the front burner because the kind of presentation that you made, which was also courageous in speaking in your language, I want to say that, as someone who I think understood most of it, which says that, Jamaican patois and cultural languages, again, are not only the province of the region. That these are now international languages, and we need to speak them because those of us who don't need to hear them.
Yes.
Amen. So anyhow, to be brief and sit down, I just wanted to say that the issues around sexuality, issues around gender inequality that continue here and on the mainland up north are issues that by and large women still are the ones who have to broach and to breach. And the bridge is our backs.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Martin. I'm a graduate of UTC and a student at UTC and a daughter of Dr. Booth. She has many daughters. She never bore any physically, but she has many daughters. I don't know if Oral is still in here, but and in the same way that he felt to say something on the subject of the church run her, I feel to say something too. I'm not saying whether the church did or did not run her, but I was present at her funeral, and I heard a very senior member of the Methodist Church say that because of the situation of her expulsion, for want of a better word, was it expulsion? Exclusion. Because of her exclusion, she was exposed to indignity and lack. I was present when those words were said. I'm not a Methodist. I do not know the inside scoop. It is a fact that something happened there. But I would say and repeat, she would have known that she would have had difficulties. But if persons had not protested against certain injustices at another time, I know I would not be standing here today as a free human being, in as much as human beings can be free. So it was admitted that the response to her action led to various difficulties. I would hope that all the churches would have learned something through her experience in that particular regard. My question is really a little question, but I would love for the ladies, my sisters, to answer it. Dr. Booth, to me, was a very human being. But because of the word was used, aristocratic, because of how she appeared, people would sometimes run away from her almost and miss her humanity. So a student badly needed to see her, and she did not see Dr. Booth because she did not see the car. And so she said, Dr. Booth, I thought you were not here. Why did you think so? Because I didn't see your car. Well, I am not my car. So when she's done with you with that, you really want to run because you feel so absolutely bad. But she really didn't care who you were. So when I went to her revision class late, and I didn't even apologize properly for being late, and I said, well, I'm late as usual. And she said, Mrs. Martin, as it was the beginning, now shall it be, so shall it be in the end. I don't care if I'm 49, I'm late for her class and I'm a student, come to the class on time. But she was my mother outside of the class. You understand? She was a very, very human person. You had to understand it, but it was there all along. No, since she has died and she has left us, we have heard so much humanity inside of the church, outside of the church. The crime is getting worse. Some of us are getting scared. Some of us are trying to be bold. From her work and her life, what word would she send to us today about the simple subject of humanity to humanity?
Thank you very much, Dr. Vernon, for your presentation. If there's one thing I think we ought to remember with regard to Dr. Booth, is that she was never one to apologize for who she was.
Yes.
The simple fact that she treasured the name Ione, it's a middle name, never asking us to forget it, was a means of saying to you and to me, whether you are black, white, rich, poor, male, female, do not apologize for who you are. Just make your contribution, and that will be most appreciated. I want to make one comment on your comment about the hymnals, because you lamented the fact, and I also lament the fact, that we have not been ecumenical enough to be able to produce one hymnal. But in the 1970s, the Caribbean Conference of Churches produced a hymnal. This hymnal included the rhythms of the Caribbean, expression of the faith of the Caribbean people. It touched on the different languages. There were hymns in Papiamento, in French, Creole, Haitian Creole, and Spanish in the 1970s. But the people of the Caribbean, whether Anglican or Methodist or Baptist or what have you, did not embrace this opportunity to praise God within our Caribbean context and using the genres that emerged from the Caribbean. That was in the 1970s. The hymn book we produced as an MCCA, I forgot to say that my name is George Mulvey, I'm a Methodist minister. The hymnal that we produced within the Caribbean in 2012. In other words, how many years since the Caribbean Conference of Churches made an effort to give to the Caribbean people an opportunity to sing and to worship using the cultural expressions that have emerged from the region, to affirm God's gift to us of our culture. May I just say one more thing with regard to that 1973 hymnal? It emerged because of the vision of another woman who was mentioned, Dr. Joyce Bailey. Thank you very much.
At this point, yeah, I won't even respond bit by bit. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit tearful. And I think I'm going to start with George is one who was my teacher, another teacher here. And friends, I said, God going sin we for what we have done with our legacy. The Caribbean Conference of Churches was the first regional ecumenical organization that included the Roman Catholics at the start. We have not cherished our legacy, and we all need to take responsibility, especially those of us of my generation and older, who, because the Caribbean Conference of Churches is an instrument of the Caribbean churches, is we make it mash up. And sing a new song, fashion me a people, all of this work, land and food for people, all of these things. These are things that other churches are now looking at and saying, how can we do this? We did it. Maybe we were ahead of our time, because perhaps one of the criticisms is that the CCC did not take the churches on board. Maybe it is time for an organization such as, or an institution such as UTC, another Caribbean ecumenical institution, to again lead the churches to do what Dr. Booth said, and to bring Christianity, to use Christianity as certainly as one of the faiths to work together to transform this world. But if we mash down our institutions, we can't do it. If we allow pettiness and, fenke, and not loving ourselves. Because, yeah, we have not adopted the rhythms. I'm sorry again, people. The service last night was lovely. But we sit down there, and the lovely Caribbean thing, music is going. We sit down, like... One of the rich experiences for me in this new job I'm in was going to Ghana, into Kumasi, the Ashanti Kingdom. And there is a service, and Kumasi is not only Anglican, it is Anglican to the point where when they sense the organ, use the smoke, so you could not see the people in the sanctuary. And they had the nice traditional English hymns. But when they got to the point where they got into the rhythm of Africa, everybody moving. And we need to embrace where we are coming from. And that we need to embrace the fact that we are one Caribbean people. Whether we are Indian heritage, African, European, Chinese, all the easies, everybody's here. And, Methodist, Anglican, Presbyterian, Pentecostal, we love Pentecostals, and many of them have come through here. We need each other. Amen. And George, what we're going to do? We crash CCC, we cannot crash UTC. All the other things, Jennifer, out of my heart, but that is what I say.
I want to make a comment just before the next question about one of the things that Sister Jennifer spoke about. Well, two things that you mentioned. The one about Dr. Booth being a human person. I experienced that. As I said, I was close to her. But as you said, because of her appearance, and that is something that if you don't behave a certain way or you don't fit into what people expect of you, they form an impression of you and they don't give you a chance. We had this discussion came up yesterday. They don't give you a chance to get to know you. And Dr. Maureen spoke about Dr. Booth teaching us to be ourselves. And so what she would say to us about what is happening, I believe she would want us to care for one another, because she was a very caring person. And the other point you mentioned about the churches having learned I could say the Methodist Church has moved along from that experience with Dr. Booth, because I had a similar experience to her of being given study leave for 1 year to do an MPhil, and when I got to England, it was recommended that I upgrade to a PhD. I wrote back to the church asking them to spend the 2 extra years, and I was granted the 2 extra years. My oppression did not come from the MCCA, it came from the British Methodists, who were the ones who tried to put a stop to that. But I was determined. The MCCA says I can do it. I am under the MCCA, so I'm not going to let another conference prevent me from doing it. So we have come a far way. Actually, someone who I met in England who had known Dr. Booth, and she was helping me to get finance and so on, she commented, she said, your church has changed because Dr. Booth did what you did and she was not allowed, but now you are getting permission. So we have grown and we have learned from it. So I can say that. Yes, Dr.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to something raised by Mrs. Carby in terms of how it is, my words, not hers, how do we manage as women in ministry? I want to point out, it wasn't mentioned in Dr. Vernon's paper, but it's important that one of the things Dr. Booth initiated here was something called UTC Women. And it was an opportunity for the women to come together to have some support. It was not the only such expression, because in the early days, there were very few women in ministry in the respective denominations. So they were like 1, 1, 2, 2. And people were in denominational spaces going through whatever they were going through. So Dr. Booth was one of the attempts for us to try to think through and to make sense of how we were going to deal with the challenges that we were experiencing as students, and we knew we would experience going out. And of course, it's not just from the men, but there were a number of women too who opposed the ordination of women to ministry of word and sacraments. I don't want to speak for Dr. Booth, but what I would say is that from my experience, the most critical thing for a woman in ministry or anybody else who wants to follow Christ is intentionality about your spirituality. The minute your eye come off the cross, your focus removes from Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, I think that's where trouble is. Now, as human beings, it come off from time to time. But I want to say, if there is one thing I want to say to the sisters, is that ultimately what sustains you is your spirituality. And it calls for what I think Dr. Booth had, which is a radical trust in God. Radical trust in God, irrespective of what is happening in the circumstances. Can't take our eyes off that. The consequence of that, I would say, there are some implications. Firstly, we have to enter it in with humility. Because, it is a very inconvenient truth, but all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, including women. So we cannot simply say, because somebody else has wronged us, that we can do no wrong. You following me? So we have to also guard our heart and keep that relationship. One of the issues Dr. Booth raised in that sermon that we have been put up on the website and so on is the communal nature of the church. So the second point I want to make is that we do need each other. Evie said it. And one of the